Admiral Du Young stood at the wide window of his ship, looking down at the blue planet called Earth. His four-fingered hand touched the cold glass as he watched the white clouds swirl over the oceans. After 30 years of watching this world, the Galactic Federation had finally decided to make contact. "Admiral, the humans have accepted our request for a meeting," Captain Jaiwan said, walking up behind him. "They want to meet in a place called Geneva." Do Young nodded. He had studied Earth's languages for the past year to prepare for this day. "Have they sent the information about their military forces that we requested?" "Yes, sir. They sent videos of something called basic training and some history lessons." Jaiwan held up a datapad. "Would you like to watch them now?" "Show me." The first video played on the big screen. It showed human soldiers running with heavy bags on their backs. They ran for hours in hot weather, through mud and rain. When some fell, others helped them up. And they kept going. "How long can they keep running like that?" Du Young asked, his purple eyes wide with surprise. "According to the data, sir, this is just day one of their basic training. It goes on for months." The next video showed humans practicing hand-to-hand combat. Du Young felt his scales tighten as he watched them hit each other with great force, get up, and continue fighting. These weren't even their warriors. These were just regular humans learning to fight. "Skip to the history lessons," Du Young ordered. His stomach felt strange as he watched scenes from something called World War II. Humans fought in freezing snow, burning deserts, and deep jungles. They kept fighting even when tired, hungry, or hurt. Captain Jaiwan paused the video. "Sir, I must express my concerns. These humans, their regular soldiers, train harder than our special forces. And look at this data. They can go days with little sleep, heal quickly from injuries, and can eat almost anything to survive." "What about their actual special forces?" Du Young asked. "We haven't received that information yet, sir. The humans said they would share it later." Do Young looked back at Earth. The Federation needed help fighting the Void Collective, and humans seemed like perfect allies. But now he wondered if introducing such a powerful species to the galaxy was wise. A young officer ran into the room. "Admiral, the humans have invited us to watch something called a routine training exercise tomorrow." "Very well," Du Young said. "Prepare my shuttle. And bring medical staff, just in case." As he prepared for his first meeting with the humans, Du Young couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. If these were their regular forces, what were their special forces like? He wasn't sure. He wanted to know the answer. Captain Jaiwan appeared at his door one last time. "Sir, should I update our threat assessment of Earth?" Do Young thought for a moment. "No, Captain. But add a note. Approach with respect. What they consider normal, we would consider extraordinary." The next morning, as his shuttle descended toward Earth, Du Young practiced his greeting speech again. He had a feeling that this first contact would change the galaxy forever. He just hoped it would change it for the better. 2 months after first contact, Lieutenant Han Bin Kim stood in front of the United Nations Security Council. His clean uniform and straight posture showed his military training. The room was full of both human leaders and alien visitors from the Federation. "The Void Collective has taken 3 more Federation worlds," Admiral Du Young said, his voice heavy with worry. "We need Earth's help. We request your regular military forces to join our defense fleet." The council members looked at each other. Earth had learned about the Void Collective, a group of hostile aliens that attacked and destroyed whole planets. They were moving closer to Earth's part of space. "How many soldiers do you need?" Han Bin asked, looking at his notes. 1,000 regular infantry troops would be enough for now, Captain Jaiwan answered. He had gotten used to humans by now, but their direct way of talking still surprised him. The council talked for an hour before making their decision. "We accept," the council president said. "Lieutenant Kim will lead the first group of soldiers to your joint military base." 3 days later, Han Bin watched as his soldiers loaded their gear onto the Federation transport ships. He had chosen soldiers from different countries around Earth. They were regular infantry troops, not special forces, not elite units, just normal soldiers. "Sir," Private My Son called out, walking up to him with her heavy backpack. "The aliens gave us their standard weapons, but the guns are too light. Can we keep our regular rifles?" "Yes," Han Bin said. "Admiral Du Young approved our request to use Earth weapons." On the main Federation ship, Han Bin noticed the alien soldiers watching his troops with curiosity. The humans were carrying twice as much gear as the aliens considered normal. They also moved faster, even with all that weight. "Lieutenant," Admiral Du Young said, approaching Han Bin, "I must ask, these soldiers, they are truly just regular forces?" "Yes, sir," Han Bin answered. "Basic infantry, nothing special." Do Young's purple eyes blinked several times. "I see. And they all volunteered for this mission." "Actually, sir, we had to turn away many volunteers. Everyone wanted to come." The Admiral walked away quickly after that, looking worried. During the week-long journey to the joint military base, the human soldiers spent their time training in the ship's gym. They lifted weights, ran laps, and practiced combat moves. The alien crew started taking different routes through the ship to avoid the gym area. The sounds of humans training made them nervous. "Sir," Captain Jaiwan reported to Du Young, "the humans are using our rest period to train more. They say they don't want to get out of shape during the trip." "What exactly do they think in shape means?" Du Young asked, watching through a camera as a human soldier did something called push-ups for an hour straight. "I'm afraid to ask, sir." When they reached the joint military base, Han Bin gathered his troops for a meeting. "Remember," he said, "we represent Earth here. Show them what regular human soldiers can do." Private My Son raised her hand. "Sir, should we take it easy on them during joint training?" "No," Han Bin said with a small smile. "We show them our normal level. Save taking it easy for the special forces when they arrive." The alien soldiers in the next room heard the humans laugh at this. They didn't understand the joke, but something about that laughter made their scales tingle with fear. Captain Mireille Park stood in front of her training field at the joint military base. The morning sun was rising, and her soldiers were ready for their regular morning exercise. Behind the fence, dozens of alien observers watched with data tablets in their hands. "Begin standard morning routine," Mireille ordered. Her voice was calm, but she smiled inside. She knew what was coming. The human soldiers started their normal workout. They ran 5 miles with full gear. They climbed ropes, crawled under wire nets, and jumped over walls. After 2 hours, they were still going strong. The alien observers were typing frantically on their tablets. "Captain," a Federation officer named Rayon approached her. His scales were pale green with worry. "How much longer will they continue?" "This is just the warm-up," Mireille said. "Main training starts in 30 minutes. Rayon's tablet fell from his hands. The main training that day was jungle combat. The Federation had built a training ground that copied the environment of a void collective planet. The air was thick and hot. The ground was covered in sticky mud. Even some of the plants were dangerous to touch. "Listen up," Mireille told her soldiers. "Standard search and rescue mission. Team 1 will play the Lost Patrol. Team 2 will find and rescue them. Use regular tactics only." The alien observers set up their monitoring equipment. They wanted to see how humans performed in these harsh conditions. They expected the exercise to last maybe 1 hour. 6 hours later, they were still watching. The human soldiers moved through the jungle like they were born there. They ate their packed food while walking. They drank water from their bags without stopping. When the dangerous plants cut their skin, they simply put on bandages and kept going. "Impossible," Rayon whispered. He turned to Mireille. "They have been fighting in this heat for 6 hours. They must stop." "Why?" Mireille asked. "Nobody is seriously hurt. This is just a regular training day." Team 2 finally found Team 1. Instead of ending the exercise, they started practicing combat moves. The soldiers fought each other in the mud, teaching each other new tricks they had learned. Their laughter echoed through the jungle. "They are enjoying this?" Rayon asked. "Of course," Mayray said. "It's good practice." That evening, the Federation officers held an emergency meeting. They watched videos from the training session and studied the human soldiers' medical data. Their heart rates barely went up. One officer said, "They call this regular training." Another added, "Regular." Rayon stood up. "We must send this data to command. The humans, their regular soldiers, are beyond anything we expected. And remember, these are not their special forces." In the base cafeteria, Mayray's soldiers ate their dinner and planned the next day's training. They asked for permission to try the exercise again, but this time at night. The Federation officers who heard this request quickly left the room. Mayray wrote in her daily report, "Standard training completed. All soldiers performed at normal levels. Alien observers seemed concerned about our regular performance standards. Request permission to show them actual intensive training next week." In his office, Admiral Du Young read her report and closed his eyes. If this was regular training, he never wanted to see intensive training. Never. The emergency alarm woke Sergeant Tae-hyun at 300 hours. Red lights flashed through the joint military base as the Federation's warning system announced, "Void collective ships detected. This is not a drill." Tae-hyun was moving before the announcement finished. He had trained his platoon for this moment. Within 3 minutes, all 30 of his soldiers were in full gear and running to their positions. The Federation officers watched in surprise. They were still trying to wake up their own troops. Status report. Tae-hyun called through his radio as his soldiers took defensive positions around the base. "Sir, Federation sensors show 5 Void collective ships approaching." Private My Son responded. "They will reach us in 10 minutes. Federation Special Forces are 4 hours away." Tae-hyun made his decision quickly. "We can't wait for Special Forces. Regular infantry will handle this. All units, prepare for combat." The first Void collective ship landed outside the base perimeter. Dark figures moved through the morning mist. They were tall, with black armor that absorbed light. Their weapons glowed with strange energy. "Remember your training," Tae-hyun told his soldiers. "Standard combat procedures only. We hold this base." The Void collective attacked with overwhelming force. They expected the base to fall quickly. They did not expect human soldiers. Tae-hyun's troops fought like machines. They had trained in these conditions for weeks. They knew every corner of the base, every possible cover position. When the enemy pushed forward, the humans did not retreat. They held their ground. "Impossible," a Federation officer said, watching through the security cameras. "They are regular infantry facing elite Void troops. They should be running." But the humans did not run. Instead, they started pushing back. Private My Son led a counterattack through the east sector. Her squad moved through the battlefield with practiced efficiency. They had done this hundreds of times in training. The fact that the enemy was real only made them more focused. The Void collective soldiers found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had fought before. The humans seemed to ignore pain. They kept fighting even when tired. When their energy weapons ran out of power, they switched to their regular earth rifles without hesitation. "Sir," My Son reported to Tae-hyun, "enemy forces are retreating from the east sector. Should we let them go?" "Negative," Tae-hyun replied. "Standard pursuit protocol. Don't let them regroup." The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, all 5 Void collective ships were destroyed or captured. The human soldiers immediately began helping the wounded, both allies and enemies, and securing the base perimeter. Admiral Du Young arrived with Federation reinforcements, only to find the battle already over. He found Tae-hyun checking on his troops. "Sergeant," Du Young said, his voice shaking slightly, "you and your regular infantry just defeated an elite Void collective strike force." "Yes, sir," Tae-hyun replied calmly. "Standard response to enemy aggression." Would you like our after-action report? Do Young looked at the battlefield, then at the calm human soldiers who were already cleaning their weapons and preparing for their next task. Sergeant, what would your special forces have done in this situation? Tai Hen thought for a moment. Honestly, sir, they probably would have captured the enemy ships before they landed. But we're just regular infantry. We did what we could. That night, Du Young sent an urgent message to Federation Command. Update threat assessment of human military capabilities immediately. Note: previous assessments were severely underestimated. Additional note: we still haven't seen their special forces in action. I pray we never have to. The Federation Military Council room was silent. Commander Yu Jin stood at the front, showing images from the recent battle. The screens displayed human soldiers fighting against Void Collective forces. The council members watched with great attention. As you can see, Yu Jin said, the human forces successfully defended our base. They defeated 5 Void Collective ships with no Federation support. Her voice was steady, but her scales showed signs of stress. Colonel Sun Ho sat quietly in his chair. He was the only human in the room. The other council members kept looking at him, then quickly looking away when he noticed. We have a critical mission, Yu Jin continued. The Void Collective is building a new base in the Nexus system. We need to stop them. She paused, then turned to Sun Ho. Colonel, we request Earth's special forces for this mission. Sun Ho looked confused. Why? Our regular forces are available. Colonel, Yu Jin said carefully, this mission is too dangerous for regular forces. We need your elite warriors. Sun Ho sat up straighter. Commander, I think there's been a mistake. The soldiers you've seen so far are our regular forces, standard infantry, basic troops. The room erupted in noise. Council members started talking all at once. Some stood up. Others checked their data tablets frantically. Impossible, one council member shouted. We saw them fight for hours without rest. They captured Void Collective ships, another added. They laughed while fighting. A third member said, his voice shaking. Sun Ho waited for the noise to die down. Yes, that's normal for our regular forces. Standard training produces these results. Yu Jin's scales had turned completely pale. Then, what are your special forces like? They're better, of course, Sun Ho said simply. But we don't need them for a simple base assault. Our regular forces can handle it. Admiral Du Young, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Colonel, please help us understand. If these are your regular forces, why do you even need special forces? Sun Ho thought about this for a moment. Well, sometimes we face problems that are too complex or sensitive for regular approaches. Special forces have more specialized training for unique situations. More specialized than fighting for hours, ignoring injuries, and capturing enemy ships. Yu Jin asked. Those are just basic skills, Sun Ho explained. Every human soldier learns them in regular training. The council room fell silent again. Du Young looked at the battle footage one more time. He watched as human soldiers carried wounded allies while still fighting, set up complex ambushes in minutes, and coordinated attacks without speaking. Colonel, Du Young said finally, I think we need to rewrite our military cooperation agreements. We clearly didn't understand what regular forces meant when dealing with humans. Sun Ho nodded politely. Of course, Admiral. Though I should warn you. If you think our regular forces are impressive, wait until you see what our support units can do. The sound of several council members fainting filled the room. Lieutenant Jin-A stood in the rain on planet Nexus 7, checking her equipment one more time. Her platoon had been fighting for 3 days straight. The Void Collective forces had tried to trap them in the planet's dense forests, but they had made a serious mistake. They thought they were fighting special forces. Status report, Jin-A called over her radio. The rain made the air thick with mist, but her soldiers' responses came quickly and clearly. East Sector secure, Mom, came the first reply. Regular patrols continuing. West Sector quiet. Another soldier reported. We finished setting up standard defensive positions. Jin'e smiled as she listened to the reports. Her regular infantry unit had not only survived the ambush, but had turned it into their advantage. Stories about their 3-day battle were already spreading across Federation space. In a Federation command ship orbiting the planet, alien military strategists watched the human soldiers with growing amazement. The humans had been fighting nonstop for 72 hours. They slept in short shifts, ate while moving, and kept fighting in conditions that would have broken most species. How is this possible? Asked senior strategist Gaiho, watching the video feeds. They are just regular forces, but they fight better than our best units. His assistant showed him the latest data. Sir, look at these numbers. The humans have destroyed 30 Void collective vehicles, captured 6 forward bases, and rescued 3 Federation patrol units, all with standard infantry tactics. On the surface, Jin'e's soldiers were teaching Federation troops how to set up basic patrol patterns. The alien soldiers watched in silence as humans demonstrated how to move through dangerous terrain, fight in bad weather, and stay alert for days at a time. This is just regular training. A Federation soldier asked Jin'e, "What you're showing us now?" "Of course," Jin'e replied. "Every human soldier learns these things in basic training. These are standard procedures." The Federation soldier looked at his commander, who quickly wrote something in his notes. The word regular was underlined 3 times. News of the human regular forces spread quickly. Other Federation species started requesting human military advisors. They wanted to learn how regular human soldiers trained, but when they saw the training programs, many changed their minds. "They do this every day?" A Federation officer asked, watching humans run combat drills in heavy rain. "As regular practice?" "Yes," Jin'e explained patiently. "Regular forces need to be ready for basic combat situations." The Federation officer looked at the humans carrying heavy weights through mud, practicing combat moves for hours, and setting up complex defensive positions from memory. "This is basic," he whispered. In her daily report, Jin'e wrote, "Regular operations continuing as normal." Federation allies seemed surprised by standard human military capabilities. Request permission to begin actual intensive training next week. Admiral Du Young read her report and immediately called an emergency meeting. "We need to redefine what we consider elite forces," he told his staff. "The humans have changed everything. Their regular forces are beyond our understanding." "Sir," his aide asked, "should we ask about their special forces again?" "No," Du Young said firmly. "I don't think we're ready for that knowledge. Not yet." The time had finally come. After months of watching regular human forces, the Federation was about to see their first Special Forces operation. Major Yunho stood in the briefing room of the Federation flagship, looking at the mission details on the screen. The Void Collective had gathered their main fleet near the border of Federation space. Regular human forces had pushed them back so many times that they had brought in their strongest ships. Now, someone needed to find out their plans. "This mission requires stealth and precision," Admiral Du Young explained to the gathered officers. "We need to get inside their command ship without being noticed." Yunho listened quietly. His 4-person Special Forces team stood behind him, looking completely ordinary in their simple black uniforms. The Federation officers kept glancing at them, trying to see what made them different from regular human soldiers. "How many ships will you need?" Commander Yujin asked, ready to assign a battle fleet. "None," Yunho said simply. "We just need 1 small transport pod." The room went silent. Even the human regular forces officers looked surprised. "But the Void Fleet has over 50 ships," Yujin said. "Their sensors will detect you." "No, they won't," Yunho replied. His team started checking their equipment with practiced moves that seemed too smooth to be natural. That night, the Federation command watched through special cameras as Yunho's team began their mission. What they saw made several alien officers request immediate mental health support. The human special forces moved like shadows. They used their regular military training as a starting point, then went far beyond it. They didn't just avoid enemy sensors, they seemed to disappear completely at will. How are they doing this? Rayon whispered, watching the team climb up the side of the Void command ship in open space. Their regular forces were already incredible. But this. Inside the Void ship, Yunho's team moved without making a sound. They gathered intelligence, planted devices in key locations, and avoided patrols with impossible precision. When they needed to deal with enemy soldiers, they did it so quietly that even the nearby guards didn't notice. "Sir," Rayon reported to Admiral Du Young, "the human Special Forces team just disabled the entire ship's security system. They say it's a standard infiltration tactic." Du Young watched the screens with wide eyes. Standard for whom? Gods. 2 hours later, Yunho's team returned to the Federation ship. They carried complete plans of the Void Fleet's formations, defense codes, and future attack strategies. They also brought samples of new Void technology they had found interesting. Mission completed with standard efficiency, Yunho reported calmly. Nothing special to report. The Federation officers who had watched the mission sat in shocked silence. One of them was quietly crying. "Major," Admiral Du Young said carefully, "what you just did was beyond anything we've ever seen. Even your regular forces don't move like that." Yunho smiled slightly. "Sir, this was just a basic infiltration mission. You should see what the team can do when we really try." In the corner, a Federation psychology officer was already preparing trauma counseling sessions for everyone who had witnessed the mission. Admiral Du Young sat in his office, working on the most important document of his career. After 6 months of observing human military forces, the Federation needed a new system to classify combat capabilities. The old system simply did not work anymore. "Sir," Captain Jaiwan entered the office with a datapad. "The final reports are ready. All Federation species have signed off on the new classification system." Do Young looked at the screen in front of him. The new system divided military forces into 6 levels: basic, advanced, elite, superior, extreme, and beyond conventional assessment. Before humans joined the Federation, no species had ever reached the extreme level. "Where did we place regular human forces?" Du Young asked, though he already knew the answer. "Extreme level, sir," Jaiwan replied. "Their standard capabilities exceed our previous highest classification." Do Young nodded. "And their special forces? Beyond conventional assessment. We had to create that level specifically for them." The Admiral remembered watching Major Yunho's team infiltrate the Void command ship. Even now, Federation scientists could not explain how they had done it. The regular human forces were already extraordinary, but their special forces operated on a completely different level. A message appeared on his screen. The Void Collective had sent a peace offer to the Federation. After facing human forces in several battles, they had decided that expanding into Federation space was not worth the risk. "They're afraid," Jaiwan said quietly. "The Void Collective, who once threatened to destroy us all, are afraid. And they've only faced our regular forces." "Add a note to the final report," Du Young ordered. "All Federation species must maintain a minimum safe distance of 100 meters from any human wearing a military uniform. 200 meters if they're smiling." Just then, Colonel Sunho entered the office. The Federation officers tried not to look nervous, but their scales changed color slightly. Even after months of working together, they still felt uneasy around humans who had military training. "Admiral," Sunho said, "Earth has approved your request for more military cooperation. We're sending training officers to help your forces improve their basic combat skills." "Thank you, Colonel," Du Young replied carefully. "Will these be Special Forces instructors?" "Oh, no," Sunho laughed. "Just regular combat instructors. We thought it would be better to start with the basics." Do Young and Jaiwan looked at each other. Their definition of basics had changed dramatically since meeting humans. One more thing, Sun Ho added as he turned to leave. Several of our support units have volunteered to help with the training. They say they're bored just handling logistics. After the colonel left, Du Young made one final addition to his report, warning to all Federation species, what humans consider regular will exceed your definition of exceptional. What they consider special will exceed your definition of possible. And their support units, just don't ask about their support units. Trust me on this one. He sent the report to Federation Command and leaned back in his chair. The galaxy had changed forever, and it was all because humans had a very different idea of what counted as regular military forces. Captain, he said to Jai-1, remind me never to ask what their irregular forces are like. Yes, sir, Jai-1 replied. That seems like a very wise decision.